अष्टवक्र उवाच avināśinam ātmānam ekam vijñāya tattvataḥ tavātmajñānadhīrasya kathamarthārjane ratiḥ. Ashtavakra said, having known the self in its true nature as indestructible and one, how is it that you, a knower of the self and one poised in wisdom, feel passion for the accumulation of wealth? Chinmaya's small commentary. The self-realized Saint Janaka continued to administer his kingdom all through his life. Ashtavakra is in these taunting verses ridiculing the apparent contradiction in Janaka's claimed inner vision and demonstrated outer actions. Having realized the self as the one indestructible supreme truth, how can he still continue the vigorous activity of the world outside, acquiring and spending wealth, and living the political and social responsibilities of a righteous ruler? In this verse, unquote, in this verse, we come across these important themes. What are they? First, the pursuit of wealth in worldly life. Second, the difference between the knower of the self and the seeker of material wealth. And third, the distinction between having knowledge and knowing the truth of it as an existential reality. After speaking at length about the wondrous nature of the self in the previous chapter, Ashtavakra turned to the subject of wealth. He could have used any other aspect of worldly life for his teaching, but he chose the subject of wealth and particularly compared the seeker of wealth who took pleasure in acquiring or possessing wealth with the knower of the self. Here, his disciple was King Janaka, who was a wealthy person by birth, and as a king had better knowledge of wealth-seeking nature. Ashtavakra knew that Janaka lived in opulence and sought wealth through various means to perform his kingly duties or establish his sovereignty or to protect his empire from internal and external threats. Also, Janaka led the life of a householder, grahastha, According to the tradition, householders had the permission to pursue wealth, artha, as one of the four chief aims, purushartha, of human life. Wealth seeking is not discouraged in Hindu philosophy, since it plays an important role in the order and regularity of the world. However, it has to be earned in deference to the other aims of human life, namely dharma, kam, and moksha. Wealth does not mean only material wealth, but all other forms of wealth such as knowledge, courage, strength, health, progeny, material possessions, name and fame, etc. All these forms of wealth give worldly people a fulfillment, happiness, satisfaction, or pleasure. Wealth has such a strong pull upon the human mind that unless one genuinely overcomes the desire for wealth, one cannot truly practice renunciation. Moving further, Ashtavakra also emphasized two important attributes of the self: unity or oneness, ekam, and indestructibility, avināśinam. This was done to underscore that desires and attachments would arise in duality. In the unified state of the self, there is no scope for attracting or and aversion or any desire. When you are everything, what else can you seek? You are the subject and the object. Everything else in this creation arise and subside in the ocean of your unified consciousness. The being, that is the jiva, with ego and the self, represented two opposite realities, which Ashtavakra wants to compare here. The self is complete, unattached, self-existent, and independent, whereas the being jiva is incomplete, attached, and dependent upon the self for its existence. The self does not desire anything because it has everything or it is everything. It is eternally complete, Purnam. The completion or perfection of self does not seek or depend upon anything for it to be complete or perfect, because it is always complete and perfect in itself. Next, in the path of liberation, learned knowledge is the starting point. Learning knowledge is the starting point. However, knowledge by itself does not lead to liberation or to the unwavering state of unified consciousness. Mere knowing is not sufficient to experience self-absorption. Sadhana, relentless sadhana is required. If this was not required, anyone who has a little knowledge of the scriptures would be known as a self-realized seer, if just knowledge, theoretical knowledge was sufficient. A mere assertion that the self is eternal, imperishable, and complete is not going to transform anyone. It has to be an inseparable part of your whole being and the foundation of your faith. It is what dhīra represents. He is stable and steadfast in his thinking and conviction. So, to summarize, Ashtavakra is testing his disciple in the three aspects. This testing becomes necessary because Janaka is leading the life of a king and enjoying all the wealth of a king, all the comforts of a king, all the passions of a king, supposedly. So, this teaching of Ashtavakra becomes important for all of us who are in the process of acquiring wealth, artha, as householders. We have to pass through this teaching of Ashtavakra and answer to ourselves where we stand. So, first he is testing Janaka as to how Janaka is approaching this pursuit of wealth as a king. And he is testing Janaka in the comparison between the knower of the self and the seeker of material wealth. How Janaka is existing as knower of self, though he is seeking wealth as well as a king. This point also Acharya is testing. And then, last, he is testing Janaka's state between the two aspects. One is having knowledge theoretically, and on the other hand, knowing the truth of it as an existential reality. So, he is testing, is Janaka just possessing knowledge of self at intellectual level, or he is the knower in the real sense? Is he abiding in self? So we can take all these questions as being put up for ourselves. may not be as necessary for Janaka, because Janaka has expressed his state very clearly in the second chapter already. So this is for all sadhakas for ages to come who are pursuing goal of realization on one hand and pursuing artha kama on the other hand as grahasthas. When Ashtavakra addresses Janaka as the one poised in wisdom, the master has a purpose. He is actually teasing and taunting his disciple, and he is asking, are you really poised in wisdom? Are you really the knower of self, abiding in self? Then why are you still seeking wealth and leading the life of king? All this taunting will be shot at Janaka by Ashtavakra. And in the upcoming chapters, gracefully and with reverence to his guru, Janaka clarifies to all these questions as an obedient and yet obedient disciple, but at the same time a realized seer. Hari Om Tat Sat.